This is the front man speaking.
What the fuck, Rick? Why are you looking like Alibaba frontman? Now, honestly, I would ask the same. I was kind of looking for a way to preserve some kind of anonymity on the internet, right? Like, not completely show my face, but still, like, make it a little bit more personal. I do have some cool props, right? Like a white monster. I think that's a cool prop. And I have a sword in case I really ever need to destroy the opposition, uh, demand respect. Then I got a sword, basically. So what I really wanted to do was comment on basically how fucked up the financial space is. You either have people like TJR, ICT that are ripping you off, that make people who could give legit advice like me or some of the other people on Instagram look bad because people get like kind of like a trauma basically with having to take advice from anyone because they don't know how to discern like truth from false. And people that could actually offer advice are basically forced to do either worse sales or try to do it for free, but that's obviously not very cool if you actually have something to offer of value. Then there's obviously all of the lazy advice, and that's a personal observation I'm making, right? Lazy advice, I mean all the financial influencers that tell you to invest until you're 65, that tell you to buy a fixed dollar cost average amount and put it in like index funds or something. Um, this is very flawed advice because you need to be like a king on top of your budgets to make any of that really work. And while inflation is still hitting, while house prices are up, while serious market corrections of 20% or 30% are still happening, they tell you, no man, just buy this fixed amount until you're 60, you'll have 1 million and get an annual of like 10 to 15%, depending on how far back you go. Usually they tell you 8 to 10, that's like the 30-year back annual. And then if you start looking at the last five, the S&P might have returned like 15. Now, knowing that you could lose your job, knowing that maybe someone in your family would need money, knowing that you're a young person with rising costs in this awful economy, it starts to look a little bit crazy that you would then hold that little measly how many k money amount that you have, that you've put together through hard work, etc., through a 20% drawdown like happened in 2018 or 2022, or god forbid a black swan, that this is somehow good at financial advice. That is wrong. That is so wrong in my eyes. Like, I don't understand how people even cling on to this, right? It's some weird survivorship bias to some lack of options. I've made videos already highlighting like how easy and simple the momentum effect is, and how much like even a simple 50 or 200 moving average can already uh, improve the market beta by 50%. So throughout all my years of watching financial content, I've never seen anything that actually makes sense, or even remotely encompasses any of the realities of life. Because if you're going to somehow bet on being rich by 65, I'm sorry, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, if you just go for like the lowest risk bet and you keep adding gears until infinity, somehow at the end of it's gonna work out. It's just lazy advice, and it's stupid. And that it makes you basically, unless you're fucking crazy, and stay around the space for 5 years, or have some luck, or happen to have a degree in the field, you just zone out, and you stop following the general advice, because there's a point at which your life takes over and other things become more important than learning how to invest or trade, right? people just stop doing it. And then people will come at you with, oh, but there's a capital problem from the European Union if you compare it to the US. Yeah, because the options to invest are fucking awful. A lot of funds are not really great. A lot of private banks are not great. You know, like places where people invest money when they're actually properly loaded. ETFs are not really returning you much, but still giving you a lot of risk. There's just not a lot of options, and that just leaves this drought, this scarcity of stuff that actually works. And that's, I mean, that's how I started, you know, learning myself, and, you know, worked to a point where I could teach others. But man, it's demoralizing. You zone out. Why are people trying to pretend that something like dividend investing works? Man, you're working 10 years to try and get like 30,000 euros, and you're still exposed to all the risks because buying and holding simply doesn't work. The market is just too aggressive. And then people will spout out theories from 1960, like the efficient market hypothesis, and crazy statistics like, oh, 90% of people lose money. Yeah, okay, 90% of people also never truly tried or were guided in a normal way. If you have university education, you are at like, well, how do you say it? You're already like 1 sigma removed from 0 z-score, meaning your IQ is probably, you know, like 115. Or, you know, if you work harder than average, if you are more persistent than the average person, or I don't know, you already have some education in the field, you are above average. So why marry yourself to a stupid statistic that says 90% of people lose money investing? Fuck you. Have a little faith, study a little harder, have some belief in yourself, and start applying yourself. Though then still you are misguided because all the advice fucking sucks. I don't know. This is the only thing that I can say that the average person will see when they start looking into markets. There's misinformation from scammers, and there's lazy advice that is just demoralizing, because apparently you just can only hold through a 30% drawdown on the S&P 500 that's going to net you close to nothing above rising costs of the economy, of groceries, of the mean product, whatever decides GDP or inflation. Yeah, no, fucking hell, guys, it sucks. Cheers.